Greetings, gamers. Tim here again, and this is hopefully going to be not too long a rambling message. Um, I have begun work on Hearts and Souls, second edition again. This time it's mostly cleaning up explanations that I had, recasting a few important pieces of examples, and cutting out a lot of the material to move it from a fundamentally medium trust game to a higher trust game. Superheroes will never be fundamentally high trust because let's be honest, fundamentally we all kind of like the little bit of violence and punching the bad guy out. There's a little bit of cathartic release in punching a bad guy or punching his giant robot or whatever. But the idea of high trust, at least as has been explained by one specific person in their personal interpretation, that I really like is that high trust adventure design is where you start high trust. And the assumption with high trust adventure design, at least summed up fairly shortly, is a very wonderful and amazing list of ideas that I have put at the beginning of the game about how to approach uh, superhero games in a slightly new way. Not like other superhero games haven't done it this way, but for me, it's a slightly new way. And the idea is that an adventure does not have to end any specific way. That there's no presumed outcomes, such as you punch out the bad guy. It's not a required solution to the problem. Uh, that may be the most common ones that your players choose, but they are very, very interesting concepts, and I'm going to share it with you. Just let me open up the file where I wrote down, mostly from memory, what he said high trust was. And this is not everybody's interpretation, but this is this person's one specific, and I really like it. And I talk about a bunch of different aspects of high trust. I say first, high trust adventure design. Uh, it says high trust adventure design begins with with a solvable problem. The problem then has several layers and pops, aspects of that problem or side problem. What is the problem? They have 5 ingredients: problems worth solving, stakes relevant to the PCs, characters worth meeting, places worth exploring, and the last little bit, why it's never just that easy. And for the most part, I like that approach. That means there is not an assumption that you're going to punch the bad guy at the end, because fundamentally, superhero games can be about more than just fighting bad guys. And a lot of people don't realize that comics have been telling stories that are more than that for 50, let's see, 20, well, for my entire life, basically. I'm 40, I will be 48 in a little over a month. So for my entire life, they've been telling comic book stories that are more than just about punching the bad guy out at the end. Sometimes there are personal dilemmas, sometimes there's emotional problems to deal with, or fallout to deal with for choosing to go fight the villain. Sometimes there literally are wonders to explore, and that doesn't occur a lot in a lot of tabletop superhero games. That doesn't mean it can't, and that doesn't mean a really great GM doesn't do that, but um, it's an idea I want to implant into the head of people playing Hearts and Souls. It is not the only way to play the game. Because, for example, rescuing people from a burning building, trying to stop a tidal wave, trying to, deal with other disasters and other problems that could impact the world don't necessarily have to have a bad guy behind it. It can just be something that occurs and you're trying to save the people protect a city, do something good and positive with that character to change that location, no matter the scale, whether it's your city block or your city or your country or your planet or your universe, your galaxy at least, maybe not the whole universe, but whether it's one of those or not, no matter what the scale is, there's more than just punching out the bad guy. And it reminds me a little bit of one of the little things that somebody told me about that was in a previous superhero game, one that I actually liked, but I never read this in any of the books. It apparently appeared in the book, or one of the creators of the book said it. I'm not sure because it's one of those things I've not run across the actual written version. And it was very much, really out of date. It was looking at what uh, cartoon superheroes of the 70s did. And this game came out much, we're talking over 20 years later. And what they were doing with comics 20 years after that cartoon came out, or even more, I'm not quite sure, was very different, very much more detailed, very much more emotional, and very much less fight the villain of the week. But they, that with some groups, that's a necessity because if you have 7 players, you're not going to be able to spotlight any one specific player's emotional or personal state as easily as a single or a couple or a smaller group of 3 to 4 people, which is generally what I like to have. 2 is okay, 3 is better, 4 is optimal. And what their powers are and how they work. None of that's the important part. It's the kind of stories that they all get together and kind of want to experience, which do not have to be about punching out the bad guy. It has no guaranteed ending. In fact, investigating it, you can find enough evidence that this is going on, turn it over to a federal organization or a global organization to handle it, which Hearts and Souls has. They have a global organization and then the United States organization from which the global organization basically spun out of, and that's Osiris. That's the local one, and it's got a little bit more reach than just the U.S., but it's a scientific group that deals with superpowers and superpowered stuff, technology that is beyond the current, mass-produced stuff and all the crazy stuff that exists in the superhero universe. The other one is called The Watch, and The Watch is basically I don't know how to put it, but it's a global organization that began in the U.S. that fundamentally purpose is to keep reports on all the crazy super stuff that go on and clean up, help, do what's necessary on a legal level. They're the more the legal side of things. Then Osiris is mostly about the science and the exploration. Watch is more about, we're the people who you ask if you need to understand, um, threats that are coming. While Osiris can recognize some threats, there are also the people who know the technology and how to build it. And so there's a lot of overlap because they did spawn from one another. Well, one split from the other. It's like, taking a plant and growing a node into a new plant that's the same species as the old plant from taking a cutting. Now, that's not all of the stuff I put down. That's the first thing I put down as part of high trust gaming. The second one is respect, which is about setting boundaries, and we go into that a little more. But it's setting boundaries, it's respecting the people at the table, it's understanding what they can tolerate and learning what they enjoy. The third aspect I put down, beyond that first big thing, which is totally taken from my friend, is called share the space, which is a part of respect, which is a part of the other kind of trust, not just the trust in the adventure that players will make it interesting and have creative solutions, but it's literally sharing the space so that everybody gets spotlight time for their character. Everybody has a comfortable seat at the table. Everybody is welcome at the table. Uh, there are always going to be exceptions. There are people I would definitely say, no, you cannot game with me. Um, and there are different reasons for that. There's one person who I just don't like the way he GMs. Um, doesn't make a good GM for me. It's not my style of GMing. He's a great creative person, very intelligent, very smart, nice guy, really nice, to tell you the truth. But I just don't like the way he runs games. And when he runs games, I'm not going to enjoy them. And I know that. So if he says, hey, you want to play a game? I'm like, are you running it? He can make a great player, though. And I have a close knit group of friends who have all tried their hand at GMing and playing. He's not in that. He is a friend, but he's not part of that group. And then there are people in my main group who there's some that are vastly better GMs than others. But a lot of it has to do with experience because, like, I and one of my friends have a significant amount of experience. It's just like me and my little sister have a huge amount of experience in gaming. And when I have asked them both, how did you get to be such a great GM? They're like, well, you taught us. I'm like, when did I do this? I don't remember this, but they think I'm a good GM, and I'm like, okay, I'll accept that. Okay, I'm not sure about that. I think I'm passable. Then for the fourth thing is setting boundaries. Now that goes back to the second and the third of the major things under trust that are not just high trust adventure design, but overall trust that's sitting at the table. Because there are things that you just don't want to go into in either a superhero game or a role playing game at all. And that those things may be different for different people in the play group that you put together or find. But I find it important to know what's okay and what's not, specifically because I've had two people in text, that means typewritten games, before voice was really solid and positive communication systems were good for it, that I accidentally triggered their claustrophobia. Now, here's the thing. I didn't know they had claustrophobia, or I would never have put them in that situation to begin with. I would have given them an obvious out long before we got to the claustrophobic point. And I have a friend who's phobic of spiders in real life, but he's okay with them in game. So knowing that, I have asked him a couple of times when I'm going to run a game, are spiders okay? And he says, yeah, they're okay in the game. Just real spiders bug me. I'm like, okay, I can do that then. I can watch for real spiders, and I'm the kind that takes the spider out and rescues it unless it's bitten somebody and it's venomous. I mean, even some of those lightly venomous. But I don't live in Australia, so in Australia, I might not entirely rescue all the spiders because I don't want them killing people. But most of them here are not. They're not really lethal. They're just kind of hurt. They hurt a little bit, and if you get it treated soon enough. And then I provide some tools for that part of trust. The X card, and I mentioned there are other ones. And then the very last one is let the editor be a referee, because Hearts and Souls calls the GM, no matter whether you call it a GM, a DM, a storyteller, whatever term you use. And I'm using editor for this because the comics I read often had the editor leave little boxes at the bottom of the comic saying, this happened in issue blah blah blah, or this is translated from their language and that kind of stuff. So you got it. And I miss those because I like those little editorial, self-help. Because if I did miss an issue and I want to go back and read that part of the story that we're referring back to, I could go look for it. But the days of back issues are gone, except for the most part in digital format. And comics are not doing very well. But books are slowly rising up. Digital comics are slowly rising up, and those I feel are going to be important in the long run. I still buy paper comics, both ones from the two major companies and some from lesser companies, smaller companies. One that prints in color and has recyclable paper, like they will take back returns and they will recycle it, you know, which I really admit, but they don't do as many superhero comics, so I read them a little less, even though I respect their stand on doing things like that in comics. But that's kind of what I wanted to tell you and give you an impression of today, because I haven't been. My health has been shaky, mostly physically, the same old, same old. Not sleeping well. Um, uh, Irritable bowel syndrome has like last night and today has been really bad. Um, and I'm doing a little bit better because I literally went and laid down with the heating pad on, and that tends to relax the muscles and I stop hurting after I've taken a bunch of medications too. Um, but I'm doing well. I'm working on Hearts and Souls more solidly again. It takes me time because this is the tedium aspect of it, which is making sure that all the examples are correct with the written rules. All the written rules are correct with the examples because there are so many games that they are not. And I was just playing in another superhero game that we enjoy, and there's actually a point where it states a rule, and it's not really clear on what number you're supposed to be using, or you're supposed to be using the number total or the number after something else, after you subtracted something from it. And it's not real clear, sorry for that, which one you're supposed to be using. So the friend in question is emailing the creator because he knows him personally and going to find out what's going on there. I've continued my game of Far Flung, which is literally the one of the more complex uh, powered by the apocalypse games I've ever run. And my friend was very nice, and he gave me a gift certificate, and I got a printed copy. And you have no idea how much this helps me because I can go, here's the rule I need. Here's the thing I need to remember. And I don't have great memory anymore. But here's the thing then how to do stuff. I mean, and this game is really good, for powered by the apocalypse game in that it's like, okay, here's how to make new stuff. Here's a list of just, you can do all this stuff in this list. And here's just the basic rules for it. And then, you have your character classes, which are very specific, uh, very specific. This is the ship, but you probably can't read because this is filming backwards. But you can play a ship, but you also get to play its little control interface person, or thing. In the game I'm running, it's a golden retriever, uh, with sapience. Um, but the nice thing about it is that literally it's got the rules and it's laid out so many of the rules very clearly that I can look them up when I can't remember them. And this is much easier for me than the PDF because my brain works in a very weird way. And like I can read the PDF and read the PDF and read the PDF. But with a book, if I actually have to look something up instead of searching for it, which can take longer than me flipping to a page, um, it just works better for me because my mind uses the iconography of the layout and the iconography. Blah, I'm not speaking well. Of like just the layout, because there are places in here where it's just text. There's just just a whole bunch of text, mostly towards the end, just a lot of text. But it tells you a lot more how to do things than a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games, which to me, part of the positive elements of Powered by the Apocalypse games is they expect you to do a little shooting from the hip. But at the same time, they put in some rigid rules to help everybody who plays the game have a similar experience. This one, it's not going to happen. Just the sheer combination of classes and other things. There's no two people are going to get the same game. Mine is quite sometimes silly, sometimes exploration focused, sometimes dealing with like global pandemic, life threatening things. And I did this before COVID, by the way. But I haven't been reliable in running it lately because my health has just decided on that day, which is Tuesdays, and it always makes me think it must be Tuesday because of that line in a TV show. Um, it just seems to be when my health decides to all screw up. But having a physical book for me is just, it helps. It speeds up my ability to answer questions and get things done. I also picked up another little game called Broadsword off of online. This particular broadsword is inspired heavily by the long out of print Hero Quest board game that came with plastic miniatures and a map and doors that you set everywhere. It's basically a dungeon crawl game that's set up differently each time, and you can play different characters, but it's only 4 players. While the role playing game still uses a lot of the same ideology and design, it gives you races, it gives you more classes, it gives you you're not stuck with just those 4 people playing. I can put I have 7 people in my main group. So when we get together face to face, I can lay out a map, come up with a quest, a dungeon to go through, because that's basically what it's for. It's dungeon crawls. And, and it's so easy. I can make new races. I can make new classes. I can just, do all that because it's such a light system. But it's very specific. It works a very specific way. It's got very solid, basic design that just works. And I'm really liking it because it's just a little bitty thin book with a whole bunch of stuff in it. And even some backer design stuff in it, which amuses me, is that they let backers put stuff in there. Sometimes that works out fantastically. Sometimes I sort of, I'm looking at what they allowed backers to pick things for art on the cover, and I'm like, oh man, why is everybody in black? And that's a specific gripe I have. There's a superhero game where, except 2 characters, all the other superhero characters are in black, and I'm like, this works better for a cyberpunk or style, a cybernetic, or spy, or if you're running just from Marvel, a Shield organization-based game kind of thing, to have the black rather than the bright costume colors of comic books. And some people just don't like that. Some people don't like it. I have good reasons for liking costumes that I thought up decades ago, and apparently they've become more common thinking now. One, a bright costume makes you stand out in a crowd. Now, that might not work so well. Might not work so well if everybody around you is wearing Hawaiian shirts, but usually there's going to be a mix of light and dark colors, and so somebody in a very vibrant, unique costume with their own special symbols and everything, they kind of tell you, either they're the good guy or the bad guy. There's a style to it. So it makes it easy to pick them out, which allows them to draw attention from villains and allows them to be noticed by victims if they need help much quicker. So generally been my argument. It also creates imagery, which is good for visual uh, storytelling, which I adore visual storytelling. I also adore role playing storytelling. And I don't mean, me sitting here telling you a story or uh, running a railroad sort of game, or anything like that. Uh, what I mean is actual play of the game, of the people interacting, creates an interesting after the fact story that if you told somebody about all the crazy stuff the player characters did and the monsters and villains they faced, and some of the emotional, moments of that, they get it that this is an interesting, entertaining thing that, you live fundamentally, rather than just read or just that you interact with. And that creates something to say afterwards. I know a lot of people use story a little differently. Like, here's my campaign, that's my story. That's fine. I mean, I don't care. I'm not here to enforce other people's ideas of terminology. Mine is just the overall flow of play and being able to tell people after the fact that, hey, these things happened. It was fun. Somebody did something stupid. Somebody did something brilliant and surprised the heck out of me. Um, because sometimes that does. I mean, I've had people that I've known for over 20 years now, and they go, I'm going to make this character like this. And I'm like, that's an odd choice for you, but I'm proud of it because I'm happy you're doing something new. And then there are times when I'm like, if somebody listed the characters or just gave me pictures of the characters, I could go, that's who's playing that, and that's who's playing that, and that's who's playing that, and that's who's playing that. Mm. So it kind of blows my mind when they break that mold because there was a point in time when virtually every character I played had white hair. Uh, that doesn't happen anymore. I've stopped that. Um, there are a couple of characters who have white hair or white fur. Um, Silverlion that I designed, my superhero, that I've used for many, many years now. He's got white hair, but he's also meant to have white hair. He experienced something that caused his hair to go white early. Um, it just suits him very well. But not every character. There was a time when all my elves were silver hair or white hair, and now I'm like, I'll just go with blonde, or I'll just go with brown, or I'll just go with black. It doesn't matter. Um, but it's kind of interesting to look back on those old characters as well and the memory behind them and think, good Lord, why was I doing all of that? Um, similarity. Why was I trying to stamp everything out of many of the same molds? And I'm trying to play something different now. I'm trying to play something, but it gets hard when you have a bunch of people that you are playing with rather than GMing, and you have this group of people, and there's 5 more of you, and this one is going this way, and this one is going this way, and this one is going this way, and this one is going that way, and you're like, can we kind of coordinate here so we can do this a little methodically? And it's like, well, that makes sense for this particular character, is that he's actually trying to do some sensible logistics, some patterning, because I just got through last night playing a game uh, with friends of mine, and it was they're great players, but everybody wanted to go do something different, and I'm like, this might not be something we should run off on each other on. We might do a methodical search, and I was thinking of a few people at the top of a building and a few people at the bottom of the building, and slowly search down to find what we're looking for until we meet. And then if not, we reverse and go again the opposite direction that we were, you know, the people who came down continue going down, the people who went up continue going up. And so the whole area has been covered twice, except the middle floor, and that's when we all meet together, and we'll probably examine that one just as a group. But it happens. Player character is going to do what player character is going to do. And I was trying to urge them a specific way. And we're using Hearts and Souls, which is my game. So a lot of times I would be saying things to them in character to allow them to get some of the important tricks of the mechanics that require in characterization stuff to get you to reroll some dice, because that's what Hearts and Souls is about. You do stuff in character. It's not spending points. It's not because you have some other mechanic in place. It's literally doing things in character that suit your character, like monologues and bantering. And those are two of the big things that are in Hearts and Souls Second Edition. Monologuing was in First Edition, which is really just you pep talk yourself, or you stand and announce that you're doing this because of you've got to save people because your hometown was destroyed by this army of bad guys. So you know, so I'm trying to give them the option to get those little extra perks in character, but they're taking it as out of character advice and not in character urging and nudging and trying to get them to talk back. So it's weird to watch people go different directions. Excuse me a second. For the record, this is not alcohol. This is a brand of root beer because I don't drink alcohol at all. And I would show it to you, but some brands get weirded about their brands getting shown, even though you can see like role playing games behind me. That I'm a role player and that role playing is a thing I do. So I'm going to drink my root beer now. Ordinarily, I drink a different brand that's cheaper than this one. Um, Partly because it has cornstarch in it. Not this one, but the other one. This one's sugar, and I'm like, oh, these are great. But this is sort of a mellow treat that I get once in a while because for me, they're like, I'm just gonna read a book and drink one of these and be cool because I like the taste of these a lot better. The other ones get watered down way too fast, and these, I mean, I can't hear it. Oh well. No, you're not gonna hear it. It's a glass bottle. So, and they still come in glass bottles, which I like. Um, uh, I guess I've babbled on. I've covered the things I'm supposed to have covered. So I hope this entertains you. And I would like to know if any of you are designing games, if any of you are stalled on a game, if any of you are thinking of doing a game, or whatever with game design. I like your feedback because I am willing to take suggestions for topics. I'm willing to listen to those ideas and maybe make a video about them. Uh, I have my own ideas for topics like class-based systems, which I talked about. I'm planning on doing one on leveling and levels and the difference between skills having levels and character having overall aptitude levels, which represents all of the character's ability to do things in some way or another, which is less specific now than it used to be, because it used to be your class determined everything. It was very tight and very narrow. And when you had a class and a level system, but now they've lightened up a little bit on how rugged and rigid a class may be in leveling up. And some don't have classes at all, but you still have a level mechanic to it, which I find kind of odd when it's an overall character level rather than just an innate, here's a skill, here's an attribute you can increase, that kind of thing. So, you're supposed to touch your face. But I am at home, and I am more than 6 feet from any human being. I'm more than 6 feet from my dog, who's asleep on the bed, which is why I was able to shoot this video without interruption, because she is out. And it's funny, because usually she only interrupts me when I'm talking through the headphones. If I have headphones on and I'm playing a game or something just so I can hear because I don't have other speakers that I use, um, it doesn't bother me. But if I say something, with the microphone down and everything else, she's like, got to be involved. Got to be. Oops, she looked up. Oh no, we're in trouble now. Anyway, peace, good gaming. As I said, tell me how's it going with your designs. I know it's taking me forever with Hearts and Souls, but I had a lot of going on. I mean, we've had a lot of stuff in the world going on, and you just double that for me because personal health issues and all that kind of jazz. And I had not intended for it to take this long, and I know somebody who seems to be able to turn out second editions like every other year, and I'm like, that's just amazing. Now, admittedly, it's not hard when you're sticking to the exact same rule system. You're not actually trying to make major changes to what you already have. And that's probably why after I released Hearts and Souls second edition, uh, many of the games I have coming down the pipe will utilize the system based on High Valor system, which my friend calls the feat system, because that what your roles are is a feat. Can you perform this feat of something? Can you jump up on the dragon and break its neck? Eh, here's your chances of success. That's your feat. Can you fight down this one zombie? That's a feat. It's basically a simple term for action, because the game is oriented on great feats of action, and that's just how it turned out. Being named, it wasn't intentionally named that. It was just a little basic mechanical structure of it got named that, and he's expanded that to the whole game, which always just, it amuses me. I didn't name my game system. Somebody else named the game system. Uh, anyway, so as I said, peace, good gaming. I'm out of here. But feedback, you're welcome to say something. I may take 4 years to respond, but I probably will respond. Uh, I've done that recently. Somebody posted, and I got a message that somebody posted, and I went and said, "Yep, I'm still here."